What's up, y'all? Got the Ohio mug. This camp's dope. We have 2 weeks left. I've been here for like 2 months. Thank God that I graduated from college. And I'm on to new things in Nashville. I've been meeting a lot of people, and before I get into this video, I just want to encourage you that Jesus really does make beautiful things, and to a person who follows him, there are great things in store for you. So oftentimes people have worries and doubts because things should look a certain way to the world, and the fact of the matter is that if you follow Jesus, he will greatly enrich and bless your life. The lies that you have to live the American dream, you have to do things a certain way, if you quote unquote fall behind the typical time frame of when and how things are supposed to happen, if you fall behind, you're going to miss out. That's not true. Jesus will bless you. And I've seen him pull through. The last 5 years have been a lot for me. And I think Jesus is bringing forth the blessings that he has promised me and the seeds that I've sown. So I hope that encourages you. Okay, now here we go. Sorry I keep drinking this coffee. I actually got this mug for my brother, and the color matches my hoodie. That's crazy. So, I watched this podcast by this young lady, amazing young lady, Miss EMI, I can't remember, Moore. In her podcast or video, vlog, whatever, is called Saved Not Soft. And what she talked about was killing fantasies, which I think now is so prominent. And one thing that she said that I have been thinking about that I'm going to elaborate on is this idea that flesh is existing and that it has certain desires. And what does that mean for a saved person? And then also, what does it mean for a not saved person? So a lot of people pull out Romans 7 and they say, well, I'm just going to do ultimately what I don't want to do because I have flesh. Like, my flesh makes me do the thing that I don't want to do. So I'll just always be bound to that. Like, at my best, that's what it is. And I see so often a contrary to that. I think it's James. I always say this, and then I'm like, I wonder if this is actually James. But I think it is. It's either one of the Johns or James. But in the letter he writes, he says, I write these things to you so that you do not sin. As in, hey, you don't need to be using the excuse, but my flesh made me do it anyway. So sorry, not sorry, I couldn't help it. Because remember, I still have it. That theme doesn't seem to be vouched for in the Bible. Like Paul said, God's grace is huge and ever covering us, but does that give us the excuse to just let sinning abound so that his grace can abound? And he's like, absolutely not. And so Romans 7 talks about being in his inward man, Paul, desiring and loving God's law. But there's another thing at war with him, and that's his flesh, which is contrary to the law that takes over him. And then it's like, if you go back even further and you realize this, Paul, a Hebrew of Hebrews, talk about a religious cat, up, down, through and through, east to west, north to south, this boy could rip the law. So think about that when he's saying this. Like, following God's laws is deep desire, but he has this flesh. And then he says, oh, wretched man I am, who will save me from basically this horrible reality. Immediately he says, I thank God through Jesus Christ my Lord. Then when you read Romans 8, it says that the doing away with of this flesh was accomplished by Jesus because he took on sinful flesh. And that we are not to live according to the flesh. If anything, the flesh has died. So it's a paradox, really. It's an ongoing war with something that has already been defeated. Like it says, Paul says, I crucify my flesh daily. To die to yourself. Crucify your flesh. Jesus died. Crucify your flesh. So this is what I don't understand. Just to be real for a second. I do not understand the constant regarding of, oh, well, my flesh just kind of la-di-da'd. And I'm like, why? Why? And not to, punch you in the face at all. Not to, kick you in the head. I'm just like, can we talk about it a little bit? Why, though? Back to my girl's podcast. I'm going to tag her in this, actually, on Instagram. EMI Moore. I hope you see this. You are a lovely young lady. And you have a great heart for God. Do not let the things that people say about how you dress screw you over, because God knows. And shout out God for getting you out of whatever situation you're in. EMI Moore. I need to tag her in here. Okay. Another thing she said, which was really, really good, and it helped me, and I was just thanking God that she was saying this. She said, let me remember here. I'm scratching my head with my phone because I got coffee in my hand. Hold up. She said, oh, right, okay. That a lot of times, fantasies start out as this little desire that ends up blossoming into a full-throttled committed sin. That is 100% true, because I can't remember where she quoted it from, maybe Romans, but desire fed ends up resulting in sin, which leads to death. AKA, when you listen to your flesh that Romans 7 talks about, it leads you to death. So to say, oh, my flesh got the best of me, is basically saying, hey, I'm one step further down the road of leading myself to death. If you look at it that way, which would hopefully make you not want to feed your flesh. And what she said is, she was like, when you fantasize certain things, and this was specifically about sexual immorality, when you fantasize sexual immorality, you And yeah, and you do inappropriate things, whether that's just mentally putting yourself and your heart in an unhealthy posture of, again, fantasizing or taking it further and doing sexually immoral things regarding others, or, whatever it is, that all of those things have stemmed from the fact that you are feeding these desires. See? She's like, it's this blossoming tree. You can cut it's a blossoming flower. You can cut the top off, but there's a stem that you fed the whole time. So it's like the fact of this. You have thoughts. It says, take captive every single thought. This is a great podcast. It made me think a lot. And I've been thinking about this, so shout out. You feed these desires or thoughts, or Romans 7, when in reality you should be killing it. And then it leads you to committing sin, which God told you that's how it was going to go. He was like, you feed this, you sin, and then in the end, you die. And you're like, well, and he's like, I told you this, though. So, to have some grace, honestly, and to, be here for y'all with compassion, it's like this. I was going to say a verse. I can't remember what it was. Hold on, let me think about it as I drink my coffee. I forgot what it was. Desires. Well, and here's what I was thinking about earlier. We have been freed from such a bondage, so don't go return to that same slavery once again, like a dog returns to his vomit. There's something about how this battle goes down. Oh, yes. Okay. Hold on. Thank God I remembered it. It's this. Well, I forgot it again. Hold on. Dang it. Guys, hold on. Okay. Paul, now take this, wrap everything we just said, put a bow on it, and set it inside of this basket. And here's the basket. Paul said that he owns his flesh, and that his flesh does exactly what he tells it to do. He is the ruler and master over his flesh. Do you want to know how to do that? Feed your spirit with God and crucify your flesh. Period. End of statement. I'm just going to make this a testament of God real quick. Do you know why I no longer have to go inside my room and battle with whether or not I should lust over women? I used to back in the day. Do you know why I don't have to struggle with fighting watching pornography? Do you know why I do not have to struggle with my flesh in terms of it ruling the way that I act? My flesh doesn't get to make decisions for me. Do you know why? Because I spend my time with Jesus Christ and I feed my spirit, and my flesh is crucified on the daily basis. Every day, that's what I'm doing. And I want to tell you, from person to person, if you are struggling with these things, there is a way out for you. If you're doing these things as a Christian, there's a way out. And what's your way out? Here it is right here. Jesus Christ died once and for all for sin. You know what that means? Here's the analogy right here. You grew up with a dad who raced race cars. And you keep coming around saying, I keep ruining all the equipment he gives me because you're not racing at his place, and you keep running out of gas and you keep running out of money, this, that, and the other, and all these problems are happening. And God, who's the owner of this racetrack and the farm, is like, you just need to come be with me. And I will bless you with every single thing that you need. So like you take the car a place you're not supposed to go, and then you come back and you say, well, I did this, I didn't want to. It's like, yeah, because you're not even at the place that you're supposed to be at. Like the car is not meant to run over there. The equipment he gave you is not meant to take you over there. Sorry, my phone ran out of storage. Anyway, God is saying the things that I'm giving you are not made for you to be elsewhere. AKA, my power is not meant for you to go and sit in a room alone with your flesh and have it win battles against you. My power is made for you to crucify the flesh, which Jesus did once and for all. Like his body was crucified, and he was in sinful flesh paying for you. So do you think that Jesus' power is so mediocre that you can just barely get by a couple of days without watching bad videos? Absolutely not. And Paul made a great point that we can have complete and utter say over our flesh if we feed our spirit with the word of God and prayer. What would be better to you? To sit around looking at Instagram, watching YouTube, watching Netflix, watching things you shouldn't be doing, thinking about things you shouldn't, to actually end up sinning and to ruin your conscience, or to spend the 2 hours that you would have been doing that reading and praying? To a lot of people, that sounds so boring. To me, that sounds amazing. You know why? Because I have an intimate relationship with God. So when you say, hey, you want to go sit in a room? That's the most, if you're a girl right now, listen, that's the most attractive thing to a godly man right there. You say you got these fantasies and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other. How about this? Let your spirit be humble, and let the quietness of your spirit be beautiful, pretty much. And it's like the things that make for Proverbs 31 and a great exemplary woman is a woman who wants to sit in the presence of God with a man. That's where true intimacy is. That's where true romance is. That's where the true fantasy, so to speak, of the man and the woman story is. Not in Hollywood, not in these TV shows, not in these books, which actually low-key corrupt the way you see love. Not in these love songs that they write and put on Broadway. Like, it is Jesus in the church. That's what marriage is. And see how they screwed it up? Of course, they do it all the time. And so I just hope that you can be encouraged to say, you know what? I do not have to be a slave to my sin. And I do not have to be a slave to my flesh. Because that's the beginning of Romans 8. We are no longer slaves to sin. If you are not a slave to sin, how associated with it are you? If you had chains on, Jesus came and broke them off, are you kind of out of them, or are you all the way out of them? See what I mean? It's like I have a pair of shoes on that I can't get off. God says, okay, I'll come take it off. So if they're off, shouldn't you no longer rationale like they're on? Some people say that don't make no sense. That makes perfect sense. If God freed you from slavery to sin, why would you go back to them, let alone associate yourself with the actions thereof? AKA Romans 8. You are free to live a holy life. God says, I'll provide everything that you need to live a godly life. And then if you seek first the kingdom, he provides all of these things to you abundantly. Do you want to get married? Let God bring it. I want to get married, but if God don't bring it, I don't want it. Is God going to bring it? I'm going to tell you this right now. I guarantee if God brings me a wife, it's better than anything anybody could have conjured, let alone myself. I have my desires. God says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So God gives me desires in order that I would accomplish his will, not that I would feed my flesh. Boom, that's the end statement right there. God gives me desires in order that I would accomplish his will, not that I would feed my flesh. Not that I would feed my fleshly desires. Look, man, God's good. Be encouraged. Drink coffee out the Ohio glass. This is my brother's glass. I'm going to send it to him. Love y'all. In the Jesus slips. Peace.